Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, and welcome to today's Zinc webinar entitled The Guest Experience Hinges on How Staff Communicate. My name is Nicole Sanders, and I'll be moderating our event today, so thanks so much for taking the time to join us. We're really grateful to have a customer join us today on our webcast, and I'll be introducing her in just a minute, but I want to cover a couple of logistics. Our webcast is scheduled to last about 30 minutes today. We have time at the end of the session, hopefully, to cover some questions. And so you're welcome to submit those questions throughout the presentation as you think of them. You can do that by clicking on the small orange arrow on the right side of your screen. And as I said, time permitting, we'll go ahead and answer those questions out loud when that time comes. So I'd like to introduce our speakers today. We have with us Cynthia Huddleston. She's the Director of Services at the Tampa Marriott. Thanks so much for being with us today, Cynthia. I know you have a long history with Marriott, being there for 37 years and 18 at the Tampa Marriott. And so I think you're the perfect candidate to share with those on the webcast today how you've worked with Zinc and some of the benefits that you've seen. So really happy to have you with us. I'll also mention Cynthia is head counsel for housekeeping of Northern Florida and Central Florida. And so I think many people in that region know her well and look to her for her advice and understanding of what works best in the hotel. And Cynthia also has a guest with her today, or a colleague, I should say. His name is Bogdan Moisa. He's the front office manager. And so thank you, Bogdan, for joining us. And he'll chime in the dialogue once we get there. I'm sitting here in our office with Deirdre Mann. She's the Zinc Chief Marketing Officer, and she's going to start off the presentation by giving you an overview of just some of those communication challenges many of you face on a day-to-day basis, and give a little bit of a preview or a look into the day in the life scenario and how that could be changed using Zinc technology. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Deirdre to get us started.
Thanks very much, and as Nicole said, we're delighted to have Cynthia join us and Bogdan, so I'm looking forward to this session today. We will run about 30 minutes and we will take questions at the end, so keep those in your head and we'll spend time at the end answering them. So just a high-level overview, Zinc has a long-term partnership with Marriott, and that means that all Marriott brands and properties can deploy Zinc as the de facto communication platform across the entire property. So this could be, think of inside the functional areas of any Marriott property. You have your GM, your head of housekeeping, your front office, front desk manager, your engineering, electrical, your conference, in-room dining, and so on. And what we find is when all functions are communicating and working together, getting answers in real time and scaling across an entire property, efficiency gains are had. And ultimately what this means is the team is fully engaged, they're on the same page, they're answering questions with immediacy and accuracy, and that translates to a really positive guest experience. And at the end of the day, that's really what matters. And Cynthia is going to share some of those insights and learnings with us today as they've been using Zinc for some months now. So what we find is when we work with Marriott properties, we find that there's different methods of communicating and getting work done. And this, I call it sort of a mixed bag of tools or communication methods, and they actually prove inadequate for a variety of reasons. So email is, we here at Zinc think it's kind of archaic for certain use cases. So it's generally slow, it's not checked, and you think about, in Cynthia's case, somebody who's moving around a lot, and it could be a very large property, multiple buildings, many floors. It's not a good form factor to get immediate responses. And for the most part, it goes unchecked or ignored, or it's something that's done at the end of the day. It's definitely not throughout the day and not helping the guest request. In-house phones are, of course, commonplace, but the problem is unless you're actually standing very close to one, it is ultimately a one-to-one communication, and it's not so you can share any information or even something of critical nature with a bunch of different people in the property. And of course, there's no history, no way to track that. Often when staff inside a property have iPhones or Androids, they might be using just the text message that comes with that phone, or potentially even consumer app like WhatsApp. The problem is it's not secure and it's not centrally administered, so it's not easy to know how to onboard the staff that are working at that property. And, sometimes there's seasonal workers or people come and go. And it's not easy to track what's going on in those types of tools. Bulletin boards, it's surprisingly still popular. And of course, in the staff room or the canteen where most of the team takes their break, that's important. But if nobody's actually on top of putting something on the bulletin board that's real time or important, there's some latency to that. Or if you're not standing next to the bulletin board, you're not reading it, so you just don't know. And then radios, whilst they've served Marriott properties well over the years, and there are limitations in terms of, there's sort of a cell tower idea where you shouldn't have any bandwidth issues, but two-way radios are expensive. They are kind of invasive in certain areas, especially at the front desk when guests are checking in. So there are limitations there. So just for some of you on the call today, you probably have heard of Zinc. I think it just spend a minute here level setting in case you're not totally clear. So we call ourselves an all-mode communication platform. And there's sort of three things that you should take away from this. We're not going to be showing any product demo today. We're really just getting into some of the use cases and how to use Zinc. So it is one app. That means everybody's using it. Everyone's on the same page. And it actually runs on a desktop, it runs on an iPad, it runs on Android and iOS. So depending on the device that you have in question. So for example, front desk where the guest checks in, mostly those people are using laptops or desktops, so Zinc runs perfectly fine on those devices as well as all the smartphones that we talked about. It is intuitive, so it's purposely designed to be dead simple, easy to use, and in fact sort of mimics some of the consumer apps that most people are very familiar with that they use in their personal lives. It's very important. We have built it to be enterprise grade, so it's highly secure and the content and the information is private, so you can administer and decide who to onboard and not, so as you provision and sign up new users. And then ultimately it provides all modes of communication. So depending on the nature of what you're trying to do, the type of answers you're trying to get or communicate across the different teams, you can use message, you can share pictures, you can do video calls, you can share content, and then push to talk is basically acts like a two-way radio and not as invasive as a radio, definitely not noisy. That works perfectly fine on your smartphone device. So before we start diving in with Cynthia, I just want to share a few different use cases and we'll get into some more detail. So let's imagine these are actors. So we have our front desk person, Sarah, Joanne is head of housekeeping, and then Chip is the on-staff electrician in the engineering department. So Sarah at the front desk, there's a VIP group coming in, and the banquet team have informed Sarah that there's some schedule changes, so people are actually arriving sooner than expected. So with this, she uses Zinc to send out a broadcast, and a broadcast is a one-to-many. So all of the various teams that are involved in helping and manage this VIP group, they need to be alerted. And this pops up on your mobile device or your smartphone, and she has sent it out notes that the schedule's changed. Everyone should review, and she sends a link to the update and the changes to the schedule. So Joanne in housekeeping, she's like, she gets the broadcast, and she's like, right, if they're going to be arriving sooner, it just turns out that this VIP group wants to take over the entire fifth floor. So she realizes that they need more time, and can we get some help? So she sends this to a group called housekeeping, and there's 6 members you'll see on your screen there. That's a a screenshot of the Zinc app. So this group has been officially set up, and those 6 members could be supervisors within housekeeping on the various floors. So they respond in a very fast fashion saying, yeah, we'll send some folks to help you on that floor so that you can meet that schedule change and make sure that the guest experience is optimal and as they expect it to be. And then shifts, so we're showing 3 different functional areas all communicating on Zinc in real time. So Sarah back at front desk realizes that there is a room at 408. This is a particular requested room by a guest checking in. She wants to know what's the status on that room. And it turns out that there's a light out in the room, so you don't want the guest to experience that when they walk into the room and there's some darkness. So Sarah has added Chip to the conversation, and he says, yes, the light is out. I've asked Dwight to come and help fix it. As it turns out, Dwight doesn't have to go to the room, see which bulb he has to find to bring it to that room. He might be on the first floor, so it's going to take him time to get to that 408 room. So he says, right, send me a quick picture so I know exactly which light is out. So he knows what bulb to bring, and that speeds up the entire process. Okay. So let's open this up and let's talk to Cynthia. So Cynthia, hopefully you'll come off mute there. So you're responsible for all the housekeeping services at Tampa, and congratulations on that head counsel position. I'm sure your expertise is welcomed. So before we dive in, can you actually share with everyone today how you actually discovered Zinc? Because I think that's an interesting story to share.
We had a Voyager, a manager trainee, who worked with us, and she was placed at Charlotte City Center, which is our hotel that does all of the, our premier hotel that did all the spotlight experimenting on different things, where the owners would go and they would say, this is what we want in our hotel. They'd go look at it at that property and take it back to their hotels. So she came back to visit us on 2 different occasions, and both times I asked her what was the most impressive tool or item
solution
they had tested at their hotel, and both times she told me by far it was Zinc. So they had it there for about 2.5 years. So the second time she told me that, I said, we've got to get this. We've got to look into it. So
very cool.
That's when we did the test, and we did the free test period with it, and ended up taking it on a permanent basis.
That's great. So let me dive into a little bit more detail. So I know you've been using across the housekeeping group and some other groups as well at the Tampa Marriott. Previously, how did team members get answers and share information inside your property?
We use it between housekeeping and the front office, which encompasses, we have it in recreation, we use it in for our lobby attendants, the front desk associates, managers, and housekeeping supervisors, and at your service, as well as the runners for at your service and Fresh Bites. The front desk agents have it on their computer console, and the people who are always moving, like the housekeeping supervisors, managers, at your service runners, and Fresh Bite runners, lobby, public space, they all have it on their GXP phones that they use to receive guest requests through GXP.
Gotcha.
So we mostly use the texting process.
Gotcha. So whatever there was native to their smartphone at that particular time, they would just rely on that.
Correct.
Right. And was there some downside to that? What were some of the ramifications that you felt didn't help and didn't get the job done?
But before Zinc?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
Exactly.
Okay. But before Zinc, we were pretty broken because we didn't want phones at the front desk. I mean, what's ruder than answering a phone when you've got a guest in front of you? So, you know, it's understandable that they don't want phones, but we have to communicate. So they were able to call us on phones, but we weren't able to get in touch with the front desk, and they weren't able to reach out to all of us. They could only reach one person when they called. With Zinc, they can reach out to the entire group, and whoever's closest to the issue can respond. And with Zinc, the front desk can get a reply from housekeeping. We weren't able to reach the front desk to respond to their needs. There were many, many times where we would have to walk to the front desk to tell them to answer a question, like if they wanted the status of a room checked. We would have to physically go because we couldn't get in touch with anyone to the front desk, which took a lot more time and slowed down guest check-ins.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So if I think any guest who's inside the property and, you know, if they need a different kind of pillow, or there happens to be some issue with their TV, or they can't get their window dressing closed or something. So they usually want a fairly immediate response, and if they can't get somebody to come help them, they want to know, well, what's an ETA? How long will that take? So if you have people running around the property, they're getting some exercise, but they're not really satisfying that.
Yeah, it's important that we still put our requests through GXP that are guest related, but those follow-up questions, absolutely, that's how we get the answers. If a guest is standing at the front desk waiting for a room, that's how we can find out how long it's going to take before that room's ready.
Exactly. Yeah, so the Zinc platform or app on everybody's device is the way that those teams are communicating with each other. So can you share with people how, when you set up Zinc for your housekeeping group, and you've talked about those other groups like front office and some of the runners and the supervisors. So talk about the groups. So inside Zinc, you can set up official groups, and you can also set up ad hoc groups. So can you share with everybody how you went about doing that?
There is a front office group, and Bogdan oversees that. And there is a housekeeping group that I oversee. And together we have a rooms group. So the rooms group communicates to everyone that's on Zinc, and the housekeeping group communicates within the housekeeping group, or you can individualize it as well. And the front office can communicate within. I don't think that they use it for that, though. They use it to communicate with us. So.
Right.
And to the runners.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, so we added, we created this big group where front office and housekeeping, they're all together. And the front office, AYS agents mostly, they send out follow-up questions to the entire group, and that's when housekeeping sees it. And not only housekeeping, but everybody else in front office, so we don't have to ask the same question 3 times because we already saw it that somebody else asked. So that was the idea of creating this large group, so everybody will be on the same page. But
right,
obviously,
so you're streamlining it.
Exactly. I mean, obviously you can break it into as many groups and individuals as you want to, but for us it works better being all together on the same page, on the same channel type of thing.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think, yes, the great thing about Sync is it's so flexible. You can decide yourself as individual properties how you want to divide up those groups. And you can, create a dedicated group for, say, a VIP event, and then everyone involved can join that group. So it sounds like you have figured that out and worked out the kinks so that you're, making sure that you get immediate answers and everyone's on the same page, but also reducing the noise level. So I think that's the difference between, using, I don't mean noise as in the sound, I just mean the amount or the volume of messages, like in email. People aren't reading them. By the time they do, it's too late and everyone's copied, which makes them just harder and too many messages. So it has like also working out.
It's also greatly improved teamwork between the two departments because we're really one department. The front desk makes the money and I spend it. So
I like that.
So, but being able to have those timely responses and the lack of frustration has enabled us to build a stronger team, especially between our supervisors and the desk agents, and also. Well, I forgot the other thought right now, but it's working very, very well with our PM supervisor in communicating with the front desk because you can't waste any time at night and we're a very busy high occupancy hotel, so we have a lot of room turns in the evening or late checkouts, and we don't want guests standing in the lobby waiting for a room at 7 o'clock at night. So it's really enabled us to communicate better and giving feedback to the front desk, like, well, if you request this, it's going to be 20 minutes. That's something that we've never been able to do before. We've given them more information to enable them to help the guest.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yes.
Another great benefit for us is that constant reminder. You don't have to pick up the phone to call and ask, hey, what's the status of this room, or how long this one is going to be needing to get done. It's just an instant message and like, hey, can you tell me about this room? And then the reply comes right back since everybody's in the same group altogether.
And it keeps everyone well informed and well educated about what's going on, what the day's bringing, and how it's working. We have a communication tool that we start out with in the morning. It's that we document what the needs are for the day, and on that paper we list who's going to be on Zinc for the day, so that we kind of start out knowing who we're talking to, which is very helpful.
Yeah, that's great. So you have,
when I respond to somebody,
eyes and ears everywhere.
Yeah, and when I respond to the front desk, it's saying, it's got my name. They know who they're speaking to. So, but with housekeeping, they're just reaching out to any of us. But with the front desk, a lot of times when you're on the phone, you have to say, who am I speaking to? so you know who you're
right.
And you can better get back to them and answer their questions.
Yeah. For those on the phone, there's in Zinc, you can actually know that your message is delivered, and then you know when the person has seen it. So if there's a group, it tells you immediately who in the group has seen it. And then obviously, like Cynthia was saying, when she responds, her picture's there, and they know it's from Cynthia, and they're getting an immediate response. So that's very cool. The one thing that Cynthia shared in the past with me when we chatted was that unlike other communication approaches, you also have this history. So can you talk just a little bit about being able to have that thread of conversation and communication.
Yeah, you're able to go back and check things and see if somebody said that something was going to be done in a certain length of time. You're able to follow up with it and make sure that that was accurate. You've got that trail, that documentation there, which is
which you definitely don't have on a house phone. Yeah, exactly. So, so the last thing that I will ask, the onboarding and training, how did that work out for you guys with your team?
Well, before I answer that, one benefit that I didn't mention was the fact that when you're in the guest floors, and now, we're all transitioning away from carpet to the hardwood floors or the vinyl flooring, sound is a big issue. And when you're in the hall with the radio, I've heard guests say that they thought the police were out in the hall. So as far as not disturbing the guest, it's 1,000 times better because there's no noise involved.
Exactly. Yeah. So, you can turn the sound off on the smartphone, and it's a completely different experience.
Right. The onboarding and training is very simple to get used to it, but what we kind of struggled with was we were signing out phones and on the housekeeping side of it and runners, and we weren't logging off. So you need to be logged off of the phone. So then we kind of assigned permanent phones, which resolved that. But as far as training, Bogdan, you probably you were more involved in that than I was.
And the training, it's the great part about Zinc is it's very user friendly. Pretty much everybody knows how to send out a text message, and when my team and Cynthia's team sees the benefits of it, everybody jumped on board, and it's really easy to show how it works. In 2-3 sessions, everybody knows how to use Zinc. Extremely user friendly, and basically, I think that was the key to it, and it is as successful as how much you are using it. And I was counting, for example, today it's already 1:30, and we have used 50 messages back and forth on the group. So people are using it because it's easy, it's real time, there is no in between, and everybody gets on board when it's easy and user friendly.
It's millennial friendly.
I like it. Yeah. We have heard that. We've heard that one before. I think millennials aren't reading emails. So that's tremendous. That's really helpful. So we've heard this from other properties as well that we've worked with, and some of the key takeaways for those of you on the phone today: cutting your costs. So by not having multiple different apps across all your different devices, when you're all working off of the same app, not only are you efficiently working together, improving that guest experience, but you don't have to spend on radios and other tools that you might be using. It's efficient. So as you heard from Cynthia and Bogdan, there's no need to be switching between different devices and apps. And the point that Cynthia made, which is the front desk is on the laptop or the desktop, but they can also multitask, and they can talk to a guest, but at the same time be communicating on Zinc, which is very non-intrusive. High adoption, we've heard this before, because of its ease of use and simplicity, everyone stays connected, and that employee engagement level goes up, which is tremendous. You have a new level of respect for how difficult the job is. And then ultimately, when it comes down to it, your guests are satisfied and loyal, and they come back to the property each time. So we have, I think, a minute left to take any questions. But as a next step, I encourage you to connect with us, find out more about it. There's a lot of rich features and capabilities with the app that brings a lot of benefits to a Marriott property. This link, we'll share this with you and you can download. We have ebooks and a variety of assets to read more. And then Kyle Dominicelli is our dedicated person that works with Marriott. So there's his contact information. Please reach out and he'll answer any of your questions and share more info. So Nicole, time for one question.
Yes, perfect. So we did have one question come in, and I think, Deirdre, you're probably going to be best suited to answer this one. So the question is, how does the cost of Zinc compare with the cell phone plan? Maybe that's something you can address.
Yeah, no, that does come up from time to time. So, I mean, first of all, when we work with a Marriott property, we tend to encourage the entire property to utilize it. Now, different properties have different devices, and that they administer and provision to their staff when they join their shift. They take the device. We have learned that we pretty much have replaced radios for a lot of properties. So there's a huge cost saving there alone, because Zinc becomes that all-mode communication platform that you don't need a radio, and for all the benefits that Cynthia and Bogdan shared. So these days, the cell phone plans, we definitely are less expensive, especially when it's at scale for a property where you have multiple users across all the different departments. It outweighs the cost of that cell phone, monthly and annual cost that has to be outlaid.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Deirdre.